really, guys, each and every week, I truly take a step back and think about who could add value to particular people within this group, particular people that are going to be on this call. And today it's going to be a very special guest and one of our own agents. It's going to be Miss Gianna Sipala. Gianna, how are you doing today?
Hey Marisa, I'm doing really good today. Thank you so much for having me and featuring me on today's call.
Absolutely. We're really excited to have you. And before I kind of, hijack Gianna's story, so to say, she just recently went from part-time to full-time. And if you know Gianna and if you're plugged into the Slack group, I should say, you see her out there, she's helping a lot of families. Even when she was on a part-time basis, she was. So, she's very strict in terms of her schedule and she's very intentional. So we're going to kind of dive into those things today because if there's one practical piece of information that you can take and extract from Gianna today and say, hey, I'm going to carry that into this weekend, I promise you're probably going to pull an app or two out of it. You're going to help a family or two out of it. So lean in, grab a notebook. And by the way, that's residual, right? It's going to keep renewing because you keep doing it. So without further ado, Gianna, thanks so much for joining me on the call. And Gianna has helped, by the way, she's been full-time for I think 3 weeks would mark today, and she can correct me if I'm wrong there.
You're right.
Perfect. I'm used to being right. Gianna knows, so I'm only kidding. Um, however, in all seriousness, Gianna's helped roughly about 10 families each week that she's been full time, and that's a big deal, guys. So without further ado, Gianna, tell us a little bit about, who are you? What were you doing before Family First Life, and kind of what led you into Family First Life?
Okay, so before coming into Family First Life, I was working at a family practice as a medical assistant. I was actually doing that for the past 10 years. I heard about FFL, I want to say like a couple years back through you. When you got on, you told me about the industry a little bit, and you're just absolutely killing it. So I was watching from the sidelines for a while and was thinking, what can I do differently? Because I knew I wasn't in a position where I was happy. Going to work every day, surrounded by people who are not getting paid well. Everyone's complaining. It like does a lot on like your mental health, so to say, like it just kind of like drags. Like every day was becoming like more mundane, and I knew I wanted change and was thinking about all different things that I can do, to get that going. And I think it was a year ago, like around this time, is when I really kind of was like, hey, send me the information. I want to get contracted. And you and Christina kind of work together with me. And it's like, when I found out it's like they'll pay for your course, I'm like, why not? What am I waiting for? It's like, let's just go ahead and do it. So that's what I ended up doing. Ended up passing, let you guys know, and then you guys got me contracted right away. I worked with my employer, I knew schedule was going to be important. Like I needed to stick to a schedule, and I was able to pick up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so the weekend. So I was able to kind of swing that with them. They allowed it. So just kind of got into the business part-time. I want to say 6 months ago, it was in June. So I sat on the course for a little bit. But I was just nervous. It was a lot of material. But it was super easy. Like taking the test, just doing it. So that was good. And just getting to work part-time and learning the business was a learning curve for me, because I was doing it part-time, not just kind of like jumping in. And but I wanted to do it part-time essentially because I wanted to be all in, but at the same time it's like I was betting on myself with something new, like I set aside a certain amount of money for my leads, and then I was working those leads. And early on, like I saw a good return, and I just kind of kept that going. And I think it was like 2 months into it. It was August. I think August was like my first month where I hit like 10 families part time. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I had a goal where I really wanted that, like I was like, by my birthday, I want to be full time. And I was just so like not invested at my job, but I was there for 10 years. It's almost like a toxic relationship, that it's holding you back. It was essentially just holding me back for what I was able to accomplish here. but I was so like tied to them and I couldn't see myself leaving at that point, especially with us being so short-staffed in the medical field, things were really difficult. So, and then we had two girls go on maternity leave, so I was kept pushing it back, pushing that date back. But without this job, it was absolutely life-changing for me because I remember I had COVID early September, I couldn't work. I didn't get paid for my job because I didn't have earned time and they cut the COVID pay. So my employer wasn't paying me for being out for that 2 weeks. And then I got into that car accident. I had to get a rental car, pay out of pocket, and that those were huge expenses that I wouldn't have been able to figure out if it wasn't for me coming with FFL, even part time, you know.
Absolutely. And Gianna, you just hit on like a bunch of things. So I wanna just kind of pause and almost just like point a lot of them out. First, because we always talk about, people come from so many different backgrounds, right? And like Gianna, you're talking about you came from the medical field. You were a medical assistant for 10 years. And you're like, what I hear you saying is I had a good relationship with my employer, but my actual position, I wasn't growing in it. It wasn't providing what I needed for me, right? And then just realizing like, hey, I can take this exam. It's a free course. Why not? Right. And Gianna, I'll never forget, you were the first person ever, by the way, to text me and be like, oh, I passed the exam. And me and Christine are like, we didn't even know she sat to take the exam. So, the way that it played out was really beautifully. And my point in kind of pointing these things out is everybody's story in this industry and in life, right? It's going to play out a little bit differently, right? Gianna talked about, she had a goal to by her birthday in September to be full time, but things came up, right? She talked about helping 10 families, right? She helped 10 families and literally then got COVID and had two girls on maternity leave at her job. So it says a lot about you in terms of you didn't want to leave people in a bad place either. And I think characteristically that's important for what we do just as a whole. It shows how much you care about other people. And then even like you're saying, hey, I had these expenses that typically would have been really difficult for me to pay, right? You were off work for 2 weeks because of COVID. Then you got in a car accident. I literally remember like I was like, oh my gosh, like that's like Gianna's like daughter, like her car, like I know, I know
I
her.
was married to that car.
Yeah, for also about 10 years, right? So when I got that message, I was concerned you were okay. But I was also concerned because I'm like, you haven't worked for 2 weeks and you were part-time but you were able to figure it out because you were able to kind of pull things together within this industry. So it says a lot about you because you could have made a lot of excuses and you chose not to. So yeah, kind of with that being said, coming in part-time, what made you say like, you know what? I'm going full time. Like, I'm not going to do this just the weekends anymore. I'm all in. I'm full time.
So essentially, what made me just kind of been thinking to go full time is I was looking at my medical job as like my side gig because think about it, I was working there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 hours a day, and I think I was bringing home like $350 after they were taking out my insurance, right? So I'm like, what am I doing here? It's like I'm holding myself back. And then during work hours, I'd be having clients call me. I'd have to follow up with insurance carriers. It's like I needed more time to deal with the important things of this job, the important aspects, the follow-ups, just building rapport with my clients. I knew at the end of the day that was really important. And, that's really kind of what made me want to go full time and just say, you know what, enough is enough. Let me just kind of go all in here.
Absolutely. And Gianna, what I think is important too is like you did it for you, right? You talked about you were like, it was kind of like a toxic relationship, right? Like, I really cared about my employer and I really cared about the people I was helping within my job, right? But at the same time, like I needed to make a decision that cared about me, right? And I think it's hard sometimes to make that decision just as a human being, like whatever that decision might be. But it speaks volumes when you're able to make that decision. And do I think that anyone who's on here that's part-time should go full-time tomorrow? No. And Gianna knows I was always like very kosher about like whenever you're ready, you just let me know. I'm not going to pressure you into full-time. But when we talk about this, like Gianna, I'm really happy you brought that up, like the toxic relationship. It's like you're putting yourself in it, right? And you decided, you know what? I'm not going to be in this relationship anymore. I'm going to take myself out of it, right? So like kudos to you for doing that and being able to show up, because the amount of pressure that that probably took off of you mentally, just as a human being, is probably huge because you're doing what you actually want to do and you're still helping people, right? So that's awesome. Um, and Gianna, with it only being a couple of weeks now that you've been full time, what are some of the biggest changes you would say that you've seen already within your business that have been for the better?
So I'm able to like keep the momentum going. So if like someone no shows me or they cancel, I'm able just to like rebook them like 2 days later, set them right into the schedule, just kind of keep that going. So I absolutely love that instead of waiting like, oh, well, I can only fit you in next week. And then they kind of fall off. So I'm able just to kind of reset those people right away and just get them right on the book so I can like meet people, and now I have the opportunity to have more contact. I have more days where I'm able to um, just call people and just kind of resolve my leads.
I love that. And it's basically you're saying, hey, I was like half in here, and I decided I wanted to put all my energy here and I wanted to show up, right? And that's huge. So, you're committed to coming to the office, and you actually already had an office before you were even full time, right? Which is great because it just shows your investment within the business was already there. How do you feel like it's benefited you, being in an office versus maybe being at home or somewhere else that's not a working environment, so to say?
Having this office, Marisa, like is huge. Environment to me is absolutely everything. I feel like if I was doing this so like just from home, like I don't know if I would have had the tools or just like to like succeed the way that I have been, like just kind of gradually throughout, since I started. So yeah, environment is absolutely everything. I'm super focused when I'm in the office. Like I just kind of zone in on the phones. If I have any questions, I have so many, people I can just go down. I can go to you downstairs. I can go to Christina, Rami, Helena, just kind of bounce ideas off you guys and just really kind of connect and just focus on what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right or what I need to adjust and just kind of like reset. So yeah, no, being in the office is absolutely huge. Like I've tried working at home. There's been days where I didn't come into the office in the beginning and I'm just like the activity
How'd that
wasn't
go?
as high.
Exactly. So the activity went down when you were home. And you knew that too. You weren't like, oh, I'm really confused what happened today. You were like, I was home. So
Yep.
my so I set up 7 appointments, not 15, right? And I think it's important because it's like, hey, that's not like a Gianna problem. Like that was a me problem. I was telling Gianna actually the other day, I used to drive 3.5 hours to Connecticut when I first got started here because that was my closest office. And because it was like my environment truly does dictate my behavior. If I'm not in a working environment, I'm probably not working. But if I'm in a working environment, you better believe I'm working. If I drove 3.5 hours, you better believe I'm working. If I drove 45 minutes, you better believe I'm working. So Gianna, like you show up, you utilize the people around you. And doesn't it make it that much better too to hear like when I'm on the phone and Rami's on the phone, Christina, Helena, and we're all getting like the same exact objections that you're getting?
Yep, that was gonna be my next thing I wanted to say is just like hearing everybody dial in the office and them booking is like super motivating too. It's like, okay, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna use that. So it's like little things that you pick up here and there. Just hearing everybody else dial, doing the same thing I'm doing.
Absolutely. And that's huge too, just because it's like, there's times I come to the office and I'm like, oh, well, like I'm gonna start dialing at, 8:30, or I'm gonna just, get off the phones for a few minutes. But then I hear you setting appointments. I hear Rami setting appointments, I hear Christina, I hear Helena, and I'm like, I better get back to work, right? Because you're in a motivated environment. So I love that. So going to an office has definitely benefited you in terms of showing up for sure. So love to hear that.
Absolutely.
And then Gianna, like, when you're sitting down for your dial days, like you said, you're extremely like zoned in. And I know that because again, we're in the same office within an office. And I'm very hesitant to go up there, not because I'm like, oh my God, Gianna's so scary, but because I'm like, I don't want to interrupt her because she's in her zone, right? And when you're in your zone, it's like nobody can interrupt you in your zone. Like if you have a zone, you know exactly what I mean. If you don't, I hope you find one day and you're going to be like, I'm in the zone and this is exactly what you meant. Because it's like you're intentionally working and you're working so you're not paying attention to the clock, you're not paying attention to Facebook, you're not doing your laundry because you're at your house, you're not saying, oh, I should wash that blanket because last night I didn't take my makeup off. And you know, you're not making all of these silly excuses that are filler as to why you can't dial. Like you're just simply in there and you're like dial. Like I knock on your door, you're like, yeah. I'm like, you on the phone, you're like, it's ringing. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, real quick, right? You know, because you're in, but you're here with a motive. You're not here to hang out. You're here to get it done and to show up and to make sure that you're getting it done for yourself. And then just helping everybody around you as well. And you've been great, even like, you know, everybody in this office, like, you know, in my Massachusetts office, like, I love you guys. You know why? Because you guys make me show up. Same thing with the dial team. Like, thank you guys for getting on the dial team because it makes me show up too, right? I think at the end of the day in this business, guys, we all need a little bit of accountability, even if that's on Zoom. Like if you can't get on Zoom, like all due respect, like I don't have advice for you. Get on Zoom would be the advice. And I say that with love because I know for me, when I came into this business, if I didn't get myself in the proper environment, it wasn't going to work. And above that, what I knew was I probably wasn't blaming myself. You know why? Because I had nobody there to be like, hey, you made 30 dials, bro. You're lucky you booked one appointment. I had nobody there to say, hey, you know, like when you tie the appointment, when you tie the appointment down, you should ask, like, you know, does the doorbell work or should I give a knock at the front door? Right? Like those things matter because they're going to decrease your no-show rate, right? They're going to make sure you're getting more appointments. So if you're not in an office, get to one. If there's not one close by you and you're committed to this business, show up on the dial team and dial, right? So just wanted to put that out there. And Gianna, you always show up. And another thing too, Gianna, I want to ask you, and this is kind of sidebar, but you tune into the dial team each and every week. And I remember, I believe it was your first like full-time day, I think. You might not even have been full-time yet. And Christina came up to you and had asked you, hey, would you mind taking a slot on the dial team? And you were like, yeah. You know, what made you say yeah?
I knew it was gonna benefit me. Like I have like so much anxiety. Like I'm like probably like a bottled up anxiety ball. But it's so much easier. Once you do it those like one, two times, like it's like nothing getting on the dial team and just working because like everyone else is doing the same thing. If you screw up, someone hangs up on you, it's okay. You have another lead. Just dial the next one and do it again, you know? It's not a big deal. And just being able to be on there, I'm more aware of like what I'm saying, you know, because I'm like almost accountable. It's like, okay, well, somebody can take what I'm saying, or if I heard something I like somewhere else, or another like video I watch, like I'm gonna use it. Maybe somebody else can take from it too,
Right.
you know.
So
So
you're
yeah.
on there and you're like, hey, like, you know, I'm on here for me, right? Like, you know, Heather, she's my favorite here too, because you just boss it out. And Gianna, for you, you're on there for you. You're what you mean by that is like you're leveling up. You might rebuttal a little bit more because you know people are listening to you, right? You might try to give a little bit like, you know, a little bit more to the client of, hey, it's just my job to get the information out. Whereas you might not have pushed that hard, right? So guys, like if you're not on the dial team, like these are the benefits of getting on the dial team. You book more appointments, you help more families, right? So get on there. And Gianna, in terms of, I'm thankful that you brought up, for example, anxiety, because at the end of the day, like we're all human beings. So everybody on here has anxiety in their own way, right? Whether it's high, low, moderate, you know, you determine that. But at the same time, it's important to hear things like Gianna, like thank you for being open and vulnerable about that. Hey, I'm like a ball of anxiety. Me too. But you might never know that because it's like, hey, Gianna's showing up to work and she's just doing her job, right? Same thing when you go in the home. You're going in there and you're just doing your job. The more complicated you make it up here, the more complicated it's going to be on the phones, in the home, doing telesales, doing door knocks, we can overcomplicate this business really bad to the point that paralysis by analysis, which is all intrinsic by anxiety, right? And it's like, just get up and go. Like once Gianna, you had your license, like you were moving. You weren't like, oh, well, what about this? You were like, okay, I buy the leads, I call them, I come to the office, I call them, we book the appointments, I go in the house and I call from the house and I get some help. You were like, okay, got it, done. And I ask for help along the way. And guys, when we can do that and just be able to realize, hey, what I'm feeling, it might be validated to me right now, but that doesn't mean that it's valid, right? If I call Tom and Tom's like, what do you want when he answers the phone? I'm not like, oh my God, I can't dial and take it personally. Like it was one person who maybe wasn't having a good day, right? So we have to kind of remember that and put almost like the blinders on in tunnel vision. And that's why I say it's so important. Like I go in Gianna's office and she's like laser focused on something, like 99% of the time. And guys, when we can just block out whatever else is going on and focus at the activity at hand only, that's a game changer for us, for everyone, right? So if you're not doing that, try to play different tricks with your brain of like, hey, I'm just calling people. I'm calling people that are in my cousin's age bracket, my grandmother's age bracket, my mother's age bracket, whatever it might be to fool that brain to say, hey, it's not that deep. I'm talking to people. All right, now Gianna, when you're coming into the office, how many appointments are you setting up for your next 2 days? Like, so for today, it's Thursday, you're setting up appointments for Friday, Saturday. How many appointments are you making sure that you leave the office with each and every Monday and Thursday?
So my goal is usually 14. That's like my goal,
14.
right? So typically I'll try to do that. If I hit it, I'm like super excited. I'm like telling everybody in the office I hit my goal. I'm a slow dialer, so I'm working on things to improve that. I just got like a power dialer, so working with that has been pretty cool the last week. So, hopefully that's gonna put up my appointment counts like every week in and week out for the next couple of days. But as of now, let's say I have about like 9 appointments. I'll be dialing until like 8 o'clock for sure, 8:30 to make
Right.
sure
And
I
you're
can
not
come up with the other ones.
you're not scared to stay in the office and dial. Like to you, it's not that deep. You're already here, right? And I love that. And in kind of comparison to that, so to say, right? Sometimes our appointment count is going to go back to our lead flow, right? And of course our activity as well. Now, when you think of your lead flow, kind of like what does that look like? How much are you making sure that you're investing each and every dial day to ensure that you are booking the proper amount of appointments?
So now that's looking a little bit different as I'm full time now. So I was at least spending like 500 a week on leads, part time. Now that I'm full time, it's been more. It's been, and then just utilizing those discounts when they're there just to make sure I have the numbers in my favor.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that. Utilizing your discounts. It's like, guys, if you don't have work slots, like why? Like please put it in the comments why you don't have it because doesn't make sense to me, right? It's like you're saving hundreds of dollars literally each and every lead order. And now, Gianna, sometimes when people come in, they're almost like biased to like one lead type, right? And sometimes I'll take accountability. Like Gianna, when you first came in, I'm like, hey, let's start with these aged final expense mail and let's go from there, right? And that's what we did. That's what you did. You were like, hey, but you were always like, what about this one? And what about this, which I loved, by the way. Are you biased to one lead type, such as, only direct mail works, or are you open to working different lead types and realizing that you're only going to blossom if you can work different lead types? Like, what does that look like for you?
I would say I'm just a little biased to the lead types because I like the script because I'm so used to my mailer script, right? So the last few weeks I've been buying internet leads, just having to like tweak things just a little bit. It's not much different, just tweak it just a tiny bit, and then it's just gonna start flowing. But all leads work. Okay, it's like my last, I want to say like 3 sales were from like aged internet leads. One, I think it was what was today? Like this week, it had started from a telephone call that was almost like a call to close. Then I had to go to her house and get signatures from her and her mom, but ended up going like 2 hours later, submitted the application, and that was a 3 month internet lead. And they were the best people to work with. It's like there are so many people in there that need to be talked to, that need help, that either have been turned down because the guy before that, he was calling so many other carriers and companies trying to get life insurance, and they would either, hang up on him because he didn't fit their height and weight criteria. Then I come along and it's like, hey, we can fit you in the Aetna policy. And like he was just, both of those people were internet leads, whether it was, aged out 1 month or 3 month, like there are people in there that need our help, that want to be reached out to. That just has to be the right place and right time.
Absolutely. And we talk about how this is like a contact sport, right? And you this past week you had mentioned to me, you're like, hey, like I'm working these internet leads. They're different, right? Like and we talked about that a little bit. Hey, it's just a little bit of tweaks and adjustments. So you're like, hey, I'm biased to the mailers because that's my best script right now. Is that fair?
Yeah.
But in reality, you're like, these aren't any worse or better. It's just a different type of activity or a different type of flow, so to say. So we talked about Ringy, and Heather Robeson was nice enough to help you kind of get everything all set up. And I heard you guys had a good conversation, which is awesome. But how has the Power Dial already helped you become more efficient with dialing and making sure you have those appointments booked? Talk to us a little bit about what that looked like.
So just being able to send out like that mass text message when I upload my leads in the system, especially the internet leads, has been great. A lot of responses back. So you can just kind of weed out other people that want to be talked to and need our help. So just kind of reaching out to those ones first as like the newer leads to get back to, make sure those are priority. And I'm getting a lot of responses like, hey, give me a call at this time, give me a call at this time, and I'll just give them a call, follow up, and then try to book the appointment then, if not call to close. So that's kind of how that's been looking. So that's usually, so far, usually, but it's only been like a week. So far, really good. Thank you so much, Heather, for, chiming in and giving me your advice and sharing your screen with me. It was huge. Because there's so many features on that app, that service that can help this business, like each and every agent in this business kind of like develop what they like, what they want to say, and then just kind of get back to people and just resolve those leads. But no, it's been really good.
Right. And you had that on, like you and Heather set, Heather was nice enough to help you set that up and that was on just a couple of days ago, Monday night, right? And from that, you've already helped out two families
Yes.
just from only ringing. There's two families. Guys, like, let's really think about that, right? Like, I was like, me and Gianna were talking. I'm like, dude, like, not only does that cover your cost of ringy, like it covers your cost of ringy times like 300, like, so guys, like, look into these types of things. Like Gianna is saying, there's so many people out there. Not everybody answers the phone, right? So there's different ways we can reach people. Door knocks are great. Calling in between appointments is great. But being able to reach out to 250 people and send them a text message all at the same time. Gianna was reaching, she was like, dude, usually I'm like following up with them. Like right now, they're like following up with me because I'm so busy. So now she's working from a stance of power, right? Of like, like I have the power stick because my schedule is actually full. Like I'm not lying and saying I can squeeze you in at 5. Like I can barely squeeze you in at 5. Like she's like, I got like 24 people that text me back, and it's like, and all why? Because of a power dial. So it's like, guys, like let's think outside the box, right? So awesome, and way to just kind of knock that out. And like you said, weeding people up through a text thread. Those are both 3-month leads. When you had to help that guy out with Aetna, I literally wanted to cry when you were telling me like how he expressed to you basically that no one was willing to help him. And guys, we have to realize that just because the insurance agent at X company can't help somebody, it absolutely does not mean that we cannot help them. I would say at least once a month, I go to somebody's house where their child, their grandkid, their cousin, their best friend is an insurance agent, but they don't qualify with that particular company. So you got to realize what like the umbrella you're actually working under. We truly have a product for literally anybody. And, Aetna, helped us prove that too, which was a beautiful thing with the height and weight chart and some health concerns there. So I love that. And then what are some of the things? So like Gianna, one thing I would say that it's like when, it's like people say like when the student, arrives, the teacher will appear or vice versa. My point is you really played like that mindset of like, this isn't a game. Like, this is my life that I'm talking about, right? Like, this is my business now. Like, if I don't go out and work, I don't expect an income, right? And working from that thought process, it can put you into two different mindsets. It can put you into like a survival mode mindset, or it can put you into a competitive mode mindset, right? And really what I mean by that survival mode is I can't pay my bills, rent, mortgage, right? I can't feed my kids, right? That's survival mode. And that's a scary place to be. But a lot of us have been in a situation of survival mode at one point or another. Now, when you're working from momentum, so to say, and you're working from a stance of like, I'm in control and that's why I'm doing this, the way that your activity prevails is completely different. Like, Gianna, talk to us a little bit about what are some of the things that you do in the field to keep your activity high. And now, before I let Gianna kind of rip on this one, I want to say that there's been, I don't want to say every time, but probably 90% of the times that Gianna thought that she had like a day that was like a bust where she wasn't able to help a family, she put some type of activity into place and helped the family. I don't even know if there was one time that she didn't, to be really transparent. And it's because you're not willing to lose. Like when you're not willing to lose, like you won't lose because you're not willing to. You're like, I have all the resources here. What am I going to do with them? So Gianna, talk to us a little bit about kind of what that looks like in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so what my activity in the field looks like say I have like a gap in between my schedule, like I'll pull over and start that. If not, if I'm in the area that, I'm going to be in for a little bit, I'll pull out like a few leads in the area that haven't answered and try to door knock them. If they're not there, I'll leave that little post-it on their door for them to call me back. And usually it's a good turnout. They do, they're interested. They don't know, what we have for them. So they want to call us back and figure out what that's all about. Even if they no show me, I'll put that on their door. And then they'll be like, they'll call me back like 3 times in a row, like, hey, I missed you. You here for that package or delivery? And I'll get them back in instead of me calling them like, hey, showed me. So they'll call me back that way. So I do like using that. And just kind of like something I took from you that I really I have been using the last couple of days. Like if I'm in well, yesterday I was in traffic. This is not what I was going to say, but like yesterday I want to sit home in traffic after my appointment, so I just sat in their parking lot and just dialed for like 3 hours, to see what my activity can be for tomorrow and Saturday. But something I took from you is like when I'm in the field, right? It's like get 2 contacts on the phone before you go to your next home, right? So if I have time and I'm not running behind, like I'll try to like start calling people in between now that I'm like full time. I'm like, okay, let's see like what I can do and like what this is gonna put on my like how that's gonna impact my schedule and like my productivity if I'm just like able to resolve more leads on days that I don't normally dial, right? So just dialing more in between appointments, try to get like at least 2 people on the phone. Even if they're not interested, you talk to two new people that you couldn't talk to on, Monday or Thursday.
Awesome. So you're making sure that in between, essentially, so you're keeping your activity high because you're saying, hey, not only do I door knock, right? But I dial any moment I have the chance to dial. So like if you get no showed, like you're not feeling bad for yourself, you're door knocking or you're dialing. And I love that you talk about like calling in between, pulling over if there's traffic. You're like, you know what, why not get some activity in? Like this is me full time now. Like why wouldn't I want to help myself, right? Being able to do those small things, like they're large. It's like sometimes, like for example, last week I believe it was Jan. I believe it was last Thursday, right around this time. You had forgot to shut off one of like your all web leads, I believe, and you had an all web lead come in randomly and you just closed it, right? Call to close on the phone, right? Nope. And you were like, no big deal. And it was like, that was about 2 families with America. And it's like, that's the compounded effort, guys, that pays out on the back end that you didn't even know was going to pay out. She wasn't expecting that call to come in. She shut it off. And then 30 minutes after we're done with the team call, she's like, hey, I just helped out Joe. Like, you know what I mean? And Joe's all good to go, right? So it's like the compound of the activity you put in. It might not pay out today, it might not pay out next week, but it will pay out. You just need to keep compounded activity in there. And once we're able to grasp that, it's like the world is yours. Like whatever you want to do in this business, you can do, but it's a compound of activity that's going to lead to the win. You also talked about the slips you leave on people's doors for door knocking, and if they no show. I love that. And guys, I know that a lot of different people do this, but like Gianna's door knocking slip, like I know you're probably like it's not that deep. Like no, it is that deep because it's just very. It looks like what is this? It doesn't look like she's not putting like USPS on there, but she's saying like, hey, you missed something, right? You missed the information I was supposed to bring up to you, right? So when she's leaving you basically you missed a package slip. By default, as humans, we're going to pick that up. We're going to call the number and see what it's about. So she has her no shows calling her back, right? You're door knocking people. You don't necessarily have to door knock them 3, 4, 5 times because you're leaving that slip. And Gianna, when you door knock people and leave that slip on the door, what would you say your percentage of people calling you back roughly would be? Just callbacks.
Like out of 4, let's say like 2 or 3 are calling back.
Okay, so like 50 to 60%. So it's like, guys, that's 50 to 60% less people she needs to go see again because she left the slip. So it's like these little things that we can implement in our business are going to make the biggest difference, right? You talking about pulling over and dialing to get a jump start on your dial day. That's huge. It's like, guys, dial days are Monday and Thursday, but every day is dial day. Every single day is dial day. Welcome to dial day. You know what I mean? So guys, we want to really, really get Carrie, she gets them on Gianna, where do you get them off of?
I think I made them off Zazzle.
Zazzle, yes. And she like custom made them. Gianna, which she didn't mind because I asked her before. Carrie, I'm gonna try to share the template with you. I'll try to put it in the Slack channel if I'm able to. But guys, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm sure it could be remade. I mean, I couldn't personally remake it, so I like begged Gianna to share it with me. It took us like 4 tries on the Google Share, but we got it done. But my point is just the way that it is, it looks really nice. So Christina's gonna go ahead and post a photo of that in Slack as well. And then you're keeping your activity high when you're out there. And now, Gianna, a big fear of people sometimes is just to do that first door knock, right? So talk to us a little bit about your first door knock experience and how you felt before, going into it.
Yeah, so before going in, like I didn't even want to get out my car. I was like, oh my God, I'm at the house, but now I got to go out and like knock on the door. I think I like texted Christina. I was like, Christina, what do I say? And she's like, well, just say whatever's gonna come up. If you're gonna do it, just say what you're gonna say. It's just the worst thing that I could say is no. And I'm like, okay, she's right, essentially. So I went there, I door knocked. It was an old couple, and they were home, and they didn't want me to come in, and that was fine. At least I got out there, and I did what I went out to do. But then there was other days where I went and door knocked, got right in the home, was able to write and submit an application. So it can go either way. Either they're going to say no, or you're going to book an appointment for the next couple of days, or you're going to get in the home.
Absolutely. And Gianna, at that point, do you feel like they trust you a bit more, even if you're booking the appointment and coming back?
Yeah, I do.
Absolutely. All right. So this is going to be just a quick sidebar question. We're going to wrap up. But what are some of the things, Gianna, that you feel like you do in home to really connect with your clients? I feel like whenever you call from a home and you're sitting down, you can tell that you actually care about the person that's sitting in front of you. And I do think that that shines through, like whether we think it does or not. Like people can feel a vibe in a room. Like you ever walk into a room and people who are all miserable, like I have, right? Like I was like, like left or right, which way is the exit, right? But you walk into a room full of positivity and energy and you're like, what are we doing? I'm excited, right? So, Gianna, talk to us like a little bit about, how do you feel like you find that common ground with your client and kind of what does that mean like to you as the agent?
So I definitely want to figure out like the reason why I'm there. So I'll try to ask like their family members' names. I'll look around the home. If I see photos, I'll be like, oh, is this like your granddaughter, your niece? And then they like just love kind of talking about their family and and things like that. So that's kind of something like I always kind of point to. If they have like certain things around their home that I'm able just to kind of like connect and resonate with, I'll kind of pick up on that too, and then we'll have a short conversation about that. Kind of makes them trust you a little bit. They just open up just that much more, and you find out more about themselves and really what they're looking to accomplish while I'm there. So that helps a whole lot. I think my
Absolutely.
last client gave me like this little like piece of her spider plant because I was like, oh, I love spider plants. I love plants. She had like this huge plant. And she's like, okay, like when we did the application, she was like, now you get to pick off your little piece and bring it home with you. And I'm like, okay, okay, that was really sweet.
And how much more like rewarding does that feel as like the agent to like go in and have that type of experience with the family?
Yeah, I'm like so happy that I'm able to like make an impact and they just are that much happier with my service and they feel confident with the work that I just did. So, and then just knowing that I'm going to have a client that can rely on me and it's just going to be that long lasting trust. Like if they ever need anything, like I'll be there. So definitely building that in the home is huge. And just being able to, I can't even tell you, like since I started, I think I wrote majority of my clients are people that I'm like, oh my God, like I absolutely, they were a gem to work with. Like I'm just so happy that I was able to sit down with them and help.
Absolutely. And it's like those small little things matter the most. Like, you can be having the worst field day, and sometimes you never know, your client's going to make your day, right? And you're going to make their day. So I love the spider plan example, right? Like, but you're going to have tons of those. So I love that so much. But it just shows like, guys, people connect with their client. It's like, we can communicate with our client, but are we connecting with the client? Like Gianna, you're connecting with the client. So awesome job. And then I know you're going to convention this year. And I know because we booked our tickets all together. And I'm really excited for it. But why are you going to convention? Like even if you and I we never met, like do you think you would still be going to convention this year?
I do, yeah.
And why do you think like why are you going for you?
I going for me, it's gonna help me just scale my business that much more. I know there's so much a part of this business that like I don't know everything with, or maybe I'm naive to. There's more people out there that I can connect with that are obviously doing the same things as me, and I want to know exactly what they're doing, and just kind of figure out what to do in my business so I can like just scale it that much more, so I can just you know do
What's next?
better
Love it.
and just grow.
So you're there, personal development. You're like, yeah, I want to see how I can grow this thing, how I can do better in certain arenas. And I'm going to go there with an agenda to do so. I'm going to get it done, come back and implement, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. And what are your goals? We're going into 2023, and this is a question that in January it can be hard to kind of answer, but what do you think? What are your goals in 2023, whether that be personal, financially, business, spiritually, it can be any type of goal. What are some of those goals for you for 2023?
Definitely personal goals. I want to just make sure I myself can stay consistent throughout. Now that I'm full time here, like I got to treat this like it was like a full time job. Like that's it. Just don't get off track. Continue showing up for myself and just keep it going. Keep it rolling.
Awesome. So you're just be trying to be the best version of yourself in 2023.
That's correct.
And you know what, Gianna? I don't really think that there's a better answer to that question. I just want to say that. I wasn't actually expecting that answer, but I don't think that there's a better answer to that question is just being a better version of who I am and making sure I show up for me, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can't count on you, no one else can count on you either, right? So, Gianna, anything else that you would want to wrap up with or you'd want to share with the team before we hop off today?
If there's like any new agents on here that are like part-time or have any questions, you can definitely feel free to like reach out to me. I'm happy to, talk to you a little bit more and just connect.
Awesome. Well,
Even if you're
Gianna,
not a new agent, you can just, reach out to me.
yeah, I was like, no matter who you are, like I'm willing to help. So awesome. And you can reach Gianna in Slack. We're all in that Slack channel for a reason. So feel free to, reach out to her as she had mentioned.